You got a tough act to follow, Mike Schlossberg. Mike Schlossberg, House of Representatives.
You took my thunder. Thank you all. First, thank all of you for being here. I know this was put together at relatively short notice in the first week in July, and to have a crowd this big speaks volumes about the passion behind this issue. There are a couple of other folks I do just want to make sure get acknowledged. Connor Kapora is here from Senator Casey's office, and so thank you, Connor, for being here. Please pass along all of our thanks to Senator Casey, who's emerged as an incredible leader on this issue, and somebody who's shown that you can evolve into these politics. Please thank you for us. As well as Phil Armstrong. Phil is over there. Phil is a candidate for state representative in the 183rd district. So thank you for being here, Phil. And I am speaking today on behalf of myself, but also my legislative twin, Representative Peter Schwartz, who couldn't be here to help other state reps. There are two things as we have this conversation about guns and about gun control that I always want to make sure we are. I want to make sure that as we have this conversation, we are realistic about what we can do, and we are clear about what we want. In terms of realism, let me be realistic if you know the facts. So far in America, 7,046 people have been killed by gun violence. Another 14,501 people shot. There's been a mass shooting in America every single week, defined as 4 or more people dead in a single incident of violence. We are talking a lot, as we should be, about what happened in Orlando. But we would be remiss if we didn't remember that there were 43 other shootings in America on June 12th, the day of the attack on Pulse nightclub. When I say that we need to be realistic, I want to be very clear. Improved gun control will not eliminate all of this violence. It won't. But it'll make a dent in it. We don't know enough about what happened in Orlando yet to draw definitive conclusions about the attacker's motive or about how he got there. What we do know is that other mass shootings, like the one in Charleston, where 9 African Americans were killed by a racist whose name none of us should ever say, we do know that background checks, had they been better enforced, would have stopped that shooting. And we know that better enforced background checks for countless others would have prevented hundreds, if not thousands of other people being taken away early from us because of gun violence. I also want to bring this conversation back to a topic that's particularly near and dear to my heart, and that's mental health. Whenever there is a mass shooting, the conversation we hear from the NRA and their allies isn't, well, we should really try to limit access to military-style weapons. The conversation turns into America needs to do a better job of taking care of the mentally ill. Now, the NRA is right. America does need to do a better job of taking care of the mentally ill. But that doesn't have anything to do with gun violence. As a matter of fact, a mentally ill person is far more likely to become a victim of gun violence rather than a perpetrator of it. And that's something that gets forgotten way too often in this debate. Now, if you do want to talk about the mentally ill with guns, we'll talk about suicide. Suicide, more often than not, is a crime that is committed in the moment, in passion, and because of the availability of a deadly weapon, or access to a manner in which someone can end their life. Now, as if any of us didn't know this before, I would invite you to go backward for a multi-decade campaign perpetrated by advocates to put a fence up on the 8th Street Bridge. Now, the reason they wanted that fence up was because people kept killing themselves by jumping off of the 8th Street Bridge. And eventually it became apparent that there was ample evidence to indicate that if we put up a fence, we can save lives and stop suicides. And did you know that having a gun in the house makes it far more likely that someone will attempt, and unfortunately, tragically complete, a suicide attempt? I also want to make sure that we're clear about what we're talking about. Because now maybe I'm just speaking for myself here, but I don't want to take away anybody's guns. Unless, as Olga said very well, there's somebody who's clearly violent and needs their guns taken away. But for a normal law-abiding citizen, I do not want to go into their bedroom, open up their gun safe, and take away their pistol. I just don't. I don't think that's productive. What I do want to do is make it harder for bad guys to get access to guns. Now, in the course of this conversation about gun violence, we constantly hear about the Second Amendment and about Article 1, Section 21 of the Pennsylvania Constitution, and how that very does clearly pertain to gun rights and to the right to bear arms. Well, let me ask all of you this question then. If the Second Amendment and Article 1, Section 21 are truly absolute, where is your nuclear weapon? Where is your nuclear weapon? If the right to bear arms is truly sacrosanct and can't be infringed upon, well, the nuclear weapon is a perfect arm. I mean, we have had arms races over nuclear weapons, so I'll ask it again. Where are your nuclear weapons? Now, nobody in their right mind thinks that an individual civilian should have a nuclear weapon, or a tank, or things along those lines. And most reasonable people can agree that there should be some kind of constraint on weapon ownership. Matter of fact, the NRA thinks that. In the aftermath of the shooting, Donald Trump started saying that, oh, it would have been great if everybody in the club had been armed. Oh, okay, let's arm everybody in the club with 10 alcohol and win the star. That makes sense. Fine. That was such a crazy statement that even the NRA came out and said, we don't think people who are consuming alcohol should have guns. That's just common sense. But I agree. I agree with the NRA. There are common sense things that we can do with weapons. And I want to be very clear what we're talking about. We're not talking about gun confiscation. We're talking about assault weapons. We're talking about expanded background checks for all bands. And let's make sure as we have this conversation with people, they know that that is exactly what we want right now. Now there is one more thing that I do want to talk about. We have to acknowledge in a democratic communal society that there are people who are far more likely to die in the hands of a gun than others. We have to recognize that African Americans, Hispanics, Muslims, women, the gay community, and other politically disadvantaged communities are far more likely to die in the hands of a gun than I am as a straight white man. Now, one of the things that I've been disappointed about in my time in elected office is to see the bands of community threatened, to see that we stop caring about each other. I have a feeling that if the NRA were made up of a more diverse group of people, you would very, very quickly see a lot more sympathy. Because there are certain groups, pretty much every minority, that is far more likely to die at the hands of a weapon than white people like me. And that is one of the many reasons I'm standing here before you today, to advocate for stronger common sense gun control. And to say that this, all of this, needs to happen again and again and again until we get there. Thank you.